Hello, everyone. Today we're going to dive into a really important and interesting chapter from your Class 10 Geography syllabus, Community and Conservation. We're going to explore how people, ordinary people like you and me, play such a crucial role in protecting India's forests.
Now, before we get into any policies or big movements, it's really important we understand something fundamental. Just look at this image. You see, forests in India are not just empty lands with trees. They are living, breathing spaces. For millions of people, especially for our traditional communities, these forests are their home. It's where they get their food, their fuel, basically their entire livelihood depends on it.
So, to make sure we understand this topic really well, especially for your exams, we're going to follow this simple roadmap. We'll start with how the government manages our forests. Then, we'll get to the most important part, the role of people. We'll look at some truly inspiring conservation stories. And finally, we'll see how partnerships are being built for the future.
All right, let's get started with our first section. To manage such vast forest resources, the government of India has a proper system, a way of classifying them. Let's find out what that is.
Okay, this table here makes it really easy to understand. In India, forests are mainly divided into three categories. First up, we have reserved forests. Now, these are seen as the most valuable, and they actually make up more than half of all our forest land. Then we have protected forests, which cover almost 1/3 of the area. The key here is that they're protected from any more damage or depletion. And finally, we have unclassed forests. These are a mix, managed by both the government and private local communities.
Now, those first two types we just talked about, reserved and protected forest, they are often grouped together and called permanent forest estates. And what's their main purpose? Well, it's to provide a steady supply of timber and other forest products while also making sure these forests are protected for the long run.
An important thing to remember is that this system isn't the same everywhere in the country. It varies. For example, if you look at a state like Madhya Pradesh, it has a huge area under these permanent forests. But if you travel to the northeastern states, you'll find a lot more of those unclassed forests, which have been managed by local communities for generations. This difference is all because of the unique history and culture of each region.
Okay, time for a quick recap. Let's see if you remember. Can you name the three main types of forests we just discussed? Take a second to think. Reserved, protected, and unclassed. Got it? Great.
So we've looked at the government's official classifications. But honestly, policies and laws are only one part of the story. The real strength, the real heart of conservation lies with the people who actually live in and around these forests. So let's shift our focus to them, the true guardians.
So why are these local communities so very important? Well, the reason is quite simple, but it's also very powerful. For so many of these communities, the forest isn't just some resource, it is their home. Their entire culture, their traditions, their day-to-day survival is completely intertwined with the forest. So for them, you see, protecting the forest isn't just about saving nature, it's about protecting their own future.
And this deep, personal connection has led to some of the most inspiring conservation movements you will ever hear about, right here in India. Let's look at a few stories of ordinary people who did extraordinary things to protect their natural world.
Our first story is from the Sariska Tiger Reserve in Rajasthan. Just imagine, your home, your forest is being threatened by mining activities. What would you do? Well, the villagers here didn't back down. They did something very smart. They actually used the government's own law, the Wildlife Protection Act, to fight back and successfully stop the mining.
And here's another incredible story, also from Rajasthan, in the Alwar district. Here, 5 villages actually came together and did something amazing. They declared a huge 1,200-hectare area of forest as the Bairodev Dakhav Sanctuary. Basically, they created their own wildlife sanctuary. They set their own rules, they banned hunting, and they protected the area themselves. They didn't wait for anyone else to act. Now, let's talk about a very famous movement, the Chipko movement in the Himalayas. As you can see, the idea was so simple, yet so incredibly powerful. First, the villagers were seeing their forests being cut down by contractors. So what did they do? They literally went and hugged the trees to stop them from being cut. This simple, nonviolent act successfully stopped deforestation in so many areas. And more than that, it showed the world that when a community gets together, they can even start their own afforestation projects using local trees. This conservation spirit also spread to farming. You had movements like the Bij Bachao Andolan in Tiri, which was all about saving our traditional native seeds.
Then there was Navdanya, which showed everyone that you can have successful farms without using all those synthetic chemicals. The big lesson from these movements was that you can protect biodiversity and be economically successful at the same time. They're not opposites.
Okay, let's just pause and think about this for a moment. We've heard stories from Sariska, Alwar, the Himalayas. What's the one common message that all of these community movements are telling us? The message is loud and clear. Conservation works best when local people are at the heart of it.
Now, these efforts from the ground up were so successful that the government began to officially recognize and work with these communities. And that leads us to our final section, building partnerships for the future of our forests. One of the most important steps in this direction is the Joint Forest Management Program, or JFM. So how does it work? Let's just follow the steps. The idea first became official in Odisha back in 1988. First, local village groups are formed to work alongside the forest department. Then, together, they manage and help restore forests that have been degraded. And here's the best part. In return for their hard work, the communities get real benefits, like being able to collect non-timber products and even getting a share of the timber profit.
But you know, this whole idea of community conservation is not new in India. It's actually deeply rooted in our culture and our beliefs. This quote on the screen says it all. Nature worship is an age-old tribal belief based on the premise that all creations of nature have to be protected. This beautiful belief has led to the protection of special places called sacred groves.
Sacred groves are basically patches of forest that are protected by communities in the name of a god or a spirit, and you can see examples of this all over India. The Munda and Sanhal tribes, for instance, worship the Mahua and Kadamba trees. In parts of Odisha and Bihar, tamarind and mango trees are worshipped during weddings, and I'm sure many of you have seen how peepal and banyan trees are considered sacred, often near temples. And of course, there's the famous example of the Bishnoi communities in Rajasthan, who protect animals like the blackbuck so fiercely.
So, the key thing to understand here is that these traditional practices are not just some random, unorganized beliefs. Not at all. They are actually very scientific, time-tested systems that have been preserving biodiversity effectively for hundreds, maybe thousands of years. They really show the wisdom of our local communities.
As we come to the end of our lesson, this image of a healthy, thriving ecosystem is a really powerful reminder. The lesson from all the examples we've seen today, from government rules to people's movements, is absolutely clear. Conservation in India is at its most successful when the local people, the ones who live right there, are at the very heart of the effort.
So, if there is one single thing I want you to take away from this entire chapter, it is this. Local communities must be at the center stage when it comes to managing our natural resources. Their involvement isn't just a nice idea, it is absolutely essential for the long-term protection of our beautiful environment.
And that brings us to the end. As you revise this chapter, I want to leave you with one final thought to reflect on. We've seen what the government does, and we've seen what communities do. Now think about this. How can we, as responsible citizens, better support both our government and our local communities in their mission to protect India's precious forests? Thank you so much for your attention.